Final Hour Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Our best bets on the NBA Finals tonight, Game 5, where much like the Panthers, the Celtics are at home, chance to win at home. They got blown out on Friday night. I mean, that was as ugly as the Oilers game.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close. It was basically unwatchable.
122-88?
They got destroyed. And from tip-off, the Mavs ran them out of the gym, and the same conversations are being had in Boston as they're being had in Florida. Like, does it matter? Does it matter if you lose by a point or you lose by 50? We'll find out tonight, and we'll find out tomorrow. Boston's still in the driver's seat. I think they win tonight. Florida in the driver's seat. I think they win tomorrow night. But if you allow these teams to fly back home for Game 6, all bets are off. Like, then it starts to get dicey for everybody involved.
Agreed.
It's crazy how you can flip the switch like that, saying, well, they're still done. But if they win that game, all bets are off.
Right. Yeah, it's still you're a massive underdog, but it's not nearly as massive as it once was. And at a minimum, the doubt is starting to creep in, right? The concern, we talked about it with McElroy and thinking about that 3-footer. You start thinking about losing. That's a dangerous game, man. That's a dark, dark thought. Start worrying about how it's going to look and feel if you choke it away. That can be very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. So
and
we'll
the numbers change too, right? Like at 3-0, what was the numbers? Basically, 98% chance that the team up 3-0 is going to win. 3-1, a little bit different, right? The numbers change a little bit. It's the Mary Swanson. So you're saying you got a chance, right? Still massive underdog, still all of that. I mean, we went through it with the Leafs. They were down 3-1. They got pushed it to a Game 7.
Mm-hmm.
These teams are trying to do that. Between Boston and between Florida, they can't allow that doubt to creep in. They've got an opportunity to control their own destiny on home court, on home ice. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, and you talk about either a party or a morgue type vibe. Leaving the building tonight, if the Mavs win or win big and dismantle the Celtics, it's going to be a really downtrodden type of atmosphere, man. People pouring out of that building. That's you're going to feel the negative energy, and the same thing in Florida tomorrow night. It's such a fork in the road. You can either witness a championship live, you have tickets to see your favorite team win a championship, or blow another opportunity and leave and think, what happens now? I mean, it's quite the juxtaposition that could be on display tonight. So we got Game 5 NBA Finals tonight. We'll get to that a little bit later on. CJ will join us here in a moment. Chris Johnston. We should play the Dregs clip again. Darren Dreger reporting, and Dregs is being asked about this all the time. And he's obviously given updates. Nothing's written in stone in terms of what's going to happen in the future, but we should replay what was said on the morning show this morning on First Up with Korolnik and Koliakovo. Darren Dreger was on the show, was asked for the latest on Marner. Where are things today compared to maybe last week? Where could they be going in the future? Here's what Dregs had to say this morning.
Marner negotiated his deal in good faith, including the no-move clause. Toronto finds something or decides. And are we so sure that Toronto doesn't want to extend Mitch? I'm not. I think Terleving would rather extend than trade.
So there you go. I mean, and again, the Leafs have not said anything publicly one way or another, and nothing was going to happen on June 17th anyway. And more than likely, in fact, I think we all know, nothing's going to happen 2 weeks from today when we're all in studio on July 1st.
Well, I think that's the question a lot of people have. So if that does happen, what's the timing of that? Who knows?
Right. And did you allow the dust to settle? Did you really decide you wanted to change your team? Did you always have that feeling? I don't know if we'll ever get those answers, but, fans live in the moment. Fans react, I think justifiably, that it was remarkably disappointing they lost again. remarkably disappointed. I've said this countless times. This fan base, they deserve to be on the run that Florida's on right now, that Edmonton's on. This team hasn't been in a Cup final since 1967. That you deserve to demand that of your favorite team.
Yeah.
But the Leafs, I don't know the way they've been thinking. They're very careful with their words. They're very careful with what they're going to say at a press conference. They're obviously going to say, like every other team, we want to win. Of course you want to win. Right. But actions are going to speak louder than words. And the way we see it right now, there's three options. You either move off. We'll use Marner as the example because he's the guy that's capable of extension, and he's in his prime. Tavares is in a different spot. I know a lot of Leaf fans are like, go to John, push. It's not going to happen. John's 33, 34, whatever it is. He's got young kids here. He's the captain of the team. He's signed for 7 years. He's not leaving. Like, I don't even think that's a part of the conversation, personally. I could be wrong on that, but I get the impression that the Leafs, Tavares, everyone involved, it's like, he's just going to play out his final year, and then you'll figure out what happens with his future beyond that. Marner's different because he's in his prime. He's 27 years old, and he's going to get more money. Tavares won't. Marner will. But he wants to trade or they want to trade, and he's cool with it. He plays out his final year, or they sign him to an extension. Not on July 1 necessarily, but between now and next July 1st.
And I'll say it again, Hayes. I'll say it again. If he comes back and has a great year, Mitch Marner is one of the most talented players in the world. I think that's great. It's the idea of bringing the band back together, going at it again. And I understand you're handcuffed to a certain extent with no movement clauses, and you basically can't change it. But I just think going at it the same way, it's not ideal. It's just not ideal hoping for
I'm with you on that.
I know. I just everything that they've got up their sleeve, and I mean the Toronto Maple Leafs, if you're looking at it, there's I think in their minds, there's probably other areas to address too. You know what I mean?
All right, three options here. Let's bring in Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. CJ, Marner's traded. Marner just plays out the final season without an extension, or Marner gets extended before Game 1 of next season. Which option are you taking as of June 17th?
I think the most likely, as of what I could put together right now, is that he returns and without an extension to start next season.
Okay.
Just because he's willing to play it out, and obviously has the no move. I'm sure you guys are kicking this around every day for a couple hours, but we'll see what manifests itself if there's anything on the trade market. But I think it's most likely. I mean, William Nylander did it just last year. It's something that happens routinely. Pasternak the year before that, and the player can still end up signing with his team. But this doesn't feel like one where there's going to be a July 2nd or 3rd press conference down at the arena, and they're laying out a long-term extension. I might be wrong there. I know a Dregs reported this morning about the Leafs, likely wanting to go that way, but I think it's going to take some time for them to get to the point where they have something done with Marner.
And do you think that's because they would still be thinking it through because Marner isn't sure what he wants to do, or because of the PR? And, you sign him to a long-term extension on July 1st where your whole fan base has been talking about for 2 months he's going to leave, or he's got to go, or you got to change. Like, what do you think would concern the most, or what would be possibly holding that up?
Well, I wouldn't read it as a PR move. I think that it would more just be it's going to take some time to figure out that kind of contract to be negotiated. I mean, the Nylander contract discussion stretched over several months, and obviously it benefited him that he had such a strong start to the year, and I think applied some pressure there for the Leafs to try to get something done as they did in halfway through the season or so. But there's not a lot of urgency to get something done right now, and I don't think it's an easy contract to forecast. I mean, Marner's numbers are incredible, but the Leafs obviously have to be mindful of how much they spend, and I think until the dust truly settles, until anyone knows with 100% certainty that he's staying, it just doesn't seem like the kind of conversation you're having. So, I think they got to get through the next week and a half, 2 weeks, get through the draft. I mean, by that point in time, that's when most of the big conversations in terms of player movement happen. I'm sure that the Leafs will have a very clear idea of what's next, and then you start that process. But it just wouldn't surprise me if you're giving me those three options. I think that the most likely is that it's going to take some time, and that time might include Mitch, coming back and playing without a contract at least to start the season.
CJ, if I'm a manager of another team in the league that I think that it, wants to improve my team, don't you think that conversation you have to have it with Brad Treliving to go, okay, in the event that he says that he would like to be moved, could you at least have those conversations? Because I would think, because every manager talks to each other. And that being said, too, I think his agent is Darren Ferris, correct? Is that
correct? Yep.
Darren Ferris has other clients. So you have to think that, just like us, the four of us talking, we can take a conversation in any which direction. So if I'm a manager and I'm talking to Darren Ferris about player Y, but I spin into, I'd also, I like your other client there, Mitch Marner. Would he consider? To me, there's a lot of back channeling. I guess my point is do you think in the next 2 weeks before free agency and at the draft and all of these things, there's had to have had conversations from both sides to just see if there is a temperature or what the marketplace looks like for a guy like Mitch Marner?
Yeah, I think 100%. I mean, that's honestly, obviously we got 2 teams left playing, and there was 4 teams as of 2 weeks ago. But that's been a lot of teams on the sidelines for a long time that didn't have games to be played, whose managers and coaches, weren't focused on a game and tonight or tomorrow or what have you. So I think that's what the league's been doing in general. From what I could tell, a lot of free agency gets set up before July 1st. I'm not breaking any news by saying that. I mean, we do the show, the bell rings, and then there's usually 3 announcements in the first 10 minutes, and off we go. It's not even to say that the deals, they obviously have to sign them and paper them and everything, but I think that the league is sizing itself up. That's free agents, that's your own players that could be traded. You're trying to look at all the range of options, the decisions you might make, and what's the best way to proceed if you're in a front office right now. And similarly, if you're an agent representing a client, you're trying to make sure that your clients are in a good position to either get the deals they want or to wind up in the situations they want to be in. So, I think that's already going on, and that's why I'm saying, you got to probably let it breathe another couple of weeks to truly see where everything's at, and and then it'll be clear if there's even anything that would make remote sense from the Leafs end of things. I mean, putting aside the fact that obviously this is ultimately Mitch Marner and his family's decision, what they want to do if he just wants to play it out. But the Leafs would have to get to a point where they think there's a trade out there, and I don't think anything like that is remotely on the table now that's forced this to be more of a pertinent issue. It's just an issue because obviously the Leafs themselves said at the end of the season, everything is on the table, and we've all watched the last 7-8 years and understand the history, and there's a decision to be made on Marner one way or another, and there's a decision from his end about what he wants to do. And so it'll be fascinating to see how, when we talk about PR, just how this all gets handled publicly as soon as, you get to a point where Brad Treliving, is speaking to reporters again, and we get to the draft. I mean, time's getting, there's going to be some action finally coming here around the league soon that extends beyond Toronto, and obviously that will have an impact on where this goes next.
CJ, what do you think about my buddy's comment that I had lunch with last week? And he told me, he said, I think you guys are insane the way you talk about Marner. He's a world-class player, and he's so good, and he started going through his stats. How do you think he's been treated in all this, just his name coming up? Because if they had won a couple rounds, it probably wouldn't be as business as usual, maybe talk about an extension. How do you think he's been treated in all of this, just with his name coming up? Because the guy did bring up he is a good player, but my counterpoint was, well, them together as a group, they don't win. And the other 2 guys, one guy's contract's ending, and the other 2 are locked up long term. So you got to change something.
Right. I mean, he's a great player. I mean, he was a Selke nominee last year. He's, consistently 90-plus points the last few seasons. I mean, we all watched it. That isn't really the issue. I think it's more what's first of all, it's Toronto, so we all know what that is. We're part of the machine. Let's not step out of that and pretend this is someone else that is driving it. I mean, there's just immense interest in this team, and there's a lot of discussion about it, and you're at a point where it feels like there's almost the organization, and it's hard to just keep doing the exact same thing, right? And for a lot of years, I think they got some grace on that. And with each compounding loss, the last 2 or 3 seasons, I think the chorus has only grown that it needs to be changed. And that's where your comment to your buddy comes in. Marner is the thing you can change because he's a great player, because he has 1 year left on his deal. It makes sense to at least think about it. I'm not saying you have to go in one way or another, but this isn't an invented conversation. I mean, there's players that have 1 year left on their deal, and I'll tell you, there's another one that we're not talking about a lot right now because he's playing the Stanley Cup final. But Leon Draisaitl is going to be a fascinating situation for the Edmonton Oilers to handle once the last game of their season has been played, because he's in the same situation as Marner, a year out. Unclear, if he'll be in a position where he wants to sign an extension. How does the team deal with that? Do you bring someone back not knowing how it's going to go? Do you try to trade him? Could you even think about trading someone like him? And so, I think this will pick up a little bit more when Edmonton's finally played. But the difference, of course, is that I don't think Marner is the only one that's taken some heat for the playoff losses, but he hasn't always been able to perform at his best. Obviously, he's not alone in that, or else the Leafs probably would have had more playoff rounds the last number of years. But we just haven't seen either, whether it's him, Austin Matthews. I mean, they haven't had a playoffs like these Oilers guys have, and so I think that as a result of that, the focus gets shifted in their direction. And now the conversation isn't just about what happened this year; it's about 7 years and where they go next.
The only difference, CJ, and being at Edmonton over the weekend, is that the Edmonton Oilers, by all accounts, and everybody, media, fan base, are dying to sign Leon Draisaitl to whatever he would like to. Here, it's just a different storyline because of what we just laid out, the last 8 years of non-success deep into the playoffs. And management and all that haven't come out and said, like Tree Living last year said, Austin Matthews and William Nylander are the priorities. We'll get it done. It's been quiet so far because the season's still going on about Mitch Marner. That's the only difference I've noticed between two great players, we'll call it.
Right. Well, and look, Edmonton has been in a conference final. They were in the second round last year. They're in the Stanley Cup final today. And if you look at the numbers, I don't have them in front of me, but Draisaitl's had way more than a point per game. He's got 30 points this spring. I think he had over 30 the year they lost to Colorado. I mean, I think it's a little different because you feel like you've seen it with the guy. And I'm not, again, I don't want to put this squarely on Marner because it's not like he's getting 2 points and everyone else is getting 15 in a playoff round. I mean, it's a collective thing. I mean, the Leafs power play scored 1 goal in the first round against Boston. I mean, that's on Marner, but that's on Tavares and Matthews and Nylander as well. The guys that play those spots, they weren't able to break through in that series. And I mean, once again, they were 1 or 2 goals short of probably at least advancing to the second round. And so, I think that's another difference here. If I were to say to you, Mitch Marner is going to have a monster playoff season down the road, he's going to lift the Stanley Cup. I mean, I don't think anyone would be surprised by that. It's just that it hasn't happened for whatever reason with him and with his teammates together. And we go back to the original point. It's the one change that would be of massive significance you could make. Doesn't guarantee it's going to happen. And quite honestly, maybe we're just looking at the really big summer being next year. With Tavares, potentially coming off the books, maybe Marner at that time. I mean, that might be the shift, and we might end up. I know no one wants to hear this, and it is only June 17th, but next year might be more about rebuilding the blue line and making a decision in goal, and then with a lot more optionality, we'll call it, heading into the 2025 summer.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I hear you. So, we'll see. We'll see what comes with Chris Johnston with us. Coaching change in Columbus. Pascal Vincent is out. I guess that's not a surprise. I mean, he got thrown. You talk about being thrown to the wolves. Babcock gets fired right before training camp.
I know, Hazy, but it just seems like it's just you got to do it, but it's crazy, man.
Yeah. Now they got a new GM. Line A wants out. Like Columbus just spins their wheels, man. It's been like 20 years, CJ.
Yeah, and what a disruptive sort of set of circumstances for a team that has a lot of young players, prospects coming along with the carousel of things that have happened, the whole Babcock situation. I mean, what have they had, 4 coaches in about 2 years?
Yep.
I know Babcock wasn't officially the coach, I suppose, other than having a press conference, but didn't ever actually work with the team too much on an individual basis. But the point is this isn't ideal. And I think what's interesting about it is that Don Waddell has just taken on the job as the president and the GM. I mean, typically in these sorts of situations, you might see an executive, wait to make this kind of change, want to get more of a feel for what's been going on, for lack of a better word, almost save a bullet, save a big, decision you can make down the line. But, over the course of the last few weeks, I think it's just become clear the organization needs an even more full change. I mean, they might have done Don Waddell a favor, quite honestly, if they had fired Pascal Vincent at the end of the season, and Pascal Vincent, because, a lot of places he might have went to work, have been closed off to him because of all the hiring. So I'd say that it's a little messy. I think we can all understand it. That team did not win very many games this year, and expectations were higher. But I mean, I don't look at that team and think they had a coaching issue. I mean, the issues go much deeper, and Pascal Vincent gets the raw end of the deal.
Yeah, he does. We'll see what Columbus has got in store. Among these other teams, yet Cup final still ongoing. Game 5 tomorrow night. Enjoy that, CJ. We'll do it again soon.
All right, sounds good, boys.
Chris Johnston joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. Best bet still to come. Mark Rolfing, and an update on the Canadian golfers going to the Paris Games. Crazy what happened yesterday and how it's going to unravel for the two guys that are going to go. We'll tell you about that as well. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm on the Celtics to win tonight, money line. The spread's about 6.5. Kind of think that the Celtics are going to win and cover, but I'm on Celtics money line and under 210.5 tonight. I think the defense shows up on both ends. I think there'll be some nervous energy early, but Celtics outright and the under. Parlay that for plus money. Best Bets powered by FanDuel. The sweat begins at tip-off by betting your favorite NBA star to score the first basket or go for 30-plus points in a same-game parlay. Please play responsibly, 19-plus, and physically located in Ontario. Mark Rolfing will join us here in a moment and get his take on the U.S. Open and the Travelers this week, but Rory's out. Rory, who's been playing a lot of golf all year.
Dude, a lot, man. He might have even played. Did he play the week before the Canadian Open? I know he played that team event with Lowry down in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. Just a lot of golf. A lot of golf. He needed a break. Yeah. So I don't know if he's just getting away from. He needed to get away from the game.
It's tough timing, though, right? Like, would he have taken this time off if he won yesterday? That's the question.
I think he probably
would have. Yeah,
because then you're flooring it, right? You're like,
agree.
what do I care about the Travelers? I just won the U.S. Open. I'm going to party, and I'm going to just hang out with my friends. I'm going to pull up Bob McIntyre, right? Yeah, I'm out of here. And, the Travelers, here's what's crazy. Rory choked away the U.S. Open. He made $2.3 million yesterday. Like $2.3 million.
That's nothing to him.
I understand that, but it's still like, what does he care about the Travelers, I guess is what I'm saying. It's an elevated event. There's a lot of money.
Well, I'm sure the people at Travelers aren't exactly jacked up right now.
Probably not, but Scheffler will be there, to my knowledge. I believe he is. All the other big boys. It's going to be a jam-packed event. They love that place. You probably played there. It's down in Hartford, right?
Yeah, that was my first big boy golf event when I got to Hartford. Sean Burke, Andrew Castles, Jeff Sanderson said, "You want to come play TPC Hartford?"
Wow.
And I love that place.
Oh, yeah. It's a sick golf course. It's a sick golf course.
Yeah, it looks very solid. So, you're right. Travelers probably not ecstatic, but PGA, jugs on, and Rory doesn't care. Rory's going to do what he's going to do. And what's amazing, and it speaks to the difference between the PGA Tour and LIV, is I have no idea what's up next for LIV. I have no idea what Bryson's doing. I don't know when I'll see him play at the British Open. Obviously, it's at Royal Troon. He'll be there in a month. I have no idea what he's going to do otherwise. Maybe I'll see him on YouTube. I know that's a big thing that he tried to discover when he went to LIV, and that's always been a point of contention. That was Mickelson's point of contention, right? That the PGA controls everything. They don't let you do anything. They have all this different content that they own and they will not allow you to use. And Bryson's pretty smart, pretty savvy from that standpoint. There's a whole new world out there online, and the golfing community in particular, it's a different beast. There are YouTube golfers who are famous, and they play golf and they hit shots and they goof around, and some of them are great players, some of them aren't so great, but they're personalities and they try different things and they do different things. And Bryson's kind of tapped into that. So, the conventional PGA Tour, stuffy, kind of older crowd, they may look at him one way. Get the impression the online, younger crowd looks at Bryson very differently.
Yeah, because he does they just had to say, I'm going to check in with this guy, see what he's up to. Maybe there's a tip, maybe there's speed training, maybe there's something that he's doing that I can pick up on. Golf nerds love that stuff.
Love that stuff, myself included.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, here's a guy who's been around the game for a long time, NBC Sports golf commentator. You see him on the Golf Channel as well. Nice enough to join us. I know it was a busy week. Here's Mark Rolfing. How you doing, Mark?
Oh, great, guys. Always love being with you. And I'm an older guy who's starting to adapt to Bryson DeChambeau. I'll tell you, I really like the way he's kind of reinvented himself. And I felt yesterday like the crowd was behind him. I think maybe when Rory got ahead, with an hour to go, it switched a little bit. He got a little momentum. But for the most part, I thought the home crowd favorite was Bryson, actually.
How did he get the crowd on his side, Rolf? Like, what happened? Like, the Koepka exchange, everyone hated that guy's guts. He had the experience with the rope where it hit his eye and people were goofing on him. Now everybody loves Bryson DeChambeau. How did that transition happen?
I don't know. I think he realized, actually, I'll tell you, there's a couple things that occurred. One is when he lost his father a couple of years ago, who he was very close to. It kind of gave him a new perspective of things. And I don't think his dad was always thrilled with the stuff he was doing, and especially when his dad died, he was into all the long drive stuff, and, he was suing the PGA Tour and the PGA Tour players, and there was just a lot going on that I think he probably wishes, his dad hadn't passed at that stage in his life. But he has reinvented himself, and I actually think that's the future of golf. When I look at what it's going to be like 20 or 30 years from now, I'm not sure you're going to have these big television networks that buy all the rights, because I think the players are going to want to control their rights even more than they do now. And you'll see a lot of guys that I think independently will start doing what Bryson's done.
Well, he's now got 2 U.S. Opens. He was in contention at the PGA. He had it. He was right there with Schauffele. So really he could have 3 or more by now. But that up and down, we'll get to Rory in a moment, but that up and down, that sand save on 18, the same green, Payne Stewart rolls in that long putt. Obviously the most famous putt ever hit at Pinehurst number 2. That's certainly the most famous sand shot ever hit at Pinehurst number 2 that I can think of anyway, what Bryson did on 18. Can you put that into historical perspective for us, Mark? Like what Bryson accomplished on 18 specifically out of the sand?
Well, I think all of it was way more complicated and way more difficult to execute than what Payne went through. I remember I was there for the Payne Stewart 25 years ago, and when he drove the ball into the rough off the 18th tee, he immediately on the tee turned to Mike Hicks, his caddy, and said, "Give me the wedge," because he knew that he was going to have only one shot, and that was to pitch it out to the fairway. It was all rough. It was not native area then. From the moment that Bryson found his ball up there against the tree root, he had lots of potential problems and, frankly, hit a phenomenal shot, I thought, just to get it into the bunker for his third shot. Now, having said that, that bunker shot will go down to me as probably one of the top 5 all-time shots ever hit to win a U.S. Open. It was just a phenomenal shot. I think he probably has a little advantage. I don't know. I'm going to ask him the next time I see him. He's got a longer 60-degree wedge. I'm not sure which wedge he actually used, but, his wedges are full length, and I think you can probably generate more speed with a longer wedge like that. Anyway, he hit it beautifully. I don't know. It was interesting. I picked him on the morning show to win by a shot, which he did. But I will tell you this: I'm not sure the guy who played the best golf One, I think he was tremendously fortunate. He only hit 5 fairways, but really didn't get into any major trouble. There seemed to be some destiny there. Whatever it was, there was some destiny, and it was a phenomenal U.S. Open. I think really good for the game.
So, Rolf, you just detailed how incredible the up and down was by DeChambeau. What are you going to take away from that golf tournament, that up and down, his victory, or the way Rory coughed it up?
I think more the way Rory coughed it up. I don't know what Rory was doing hitting driver off that 18th tee. The driver wasn't going to put him anywhere in good shape, and he had hit 3-wood before. Now, having said that, it's easy to second guess. I really feel like had he hit the correct club off the 15th tee, which he didn't, hit too much club there, and the ball never had a chance of getting on that par 3, that all occurred, and he bogeyed that hole. That all occurred before he missed the 2 short putts. I think if he pars that 15th hole and goes to 16 with a 2-shot lead, it's a different story. But, it was his U.S. Open, had a 2-shot lead with 5 to go. He has now put out a statement where he said that this one hurts, probably more than any in his entire career. I can see it. Here's an interesting stat I read on the plane this morning. He has now, in the last 2 U.S. Opens, become the first person ever to lose by a shot, in the final round 2 years in a row. And when you look at what he did, people are going to forget he bogeyed his last par 5 yesterday. That was the 10th hole, and last year at Los Angeles Country Club, he bogeyed his last par 5 on that second 9 also. You can't win a U.S. Open making 6s on par 5s like that coming down the stretch.
What do you think this does to him after this, Rolf? It's going to be fascinating to watch him the next time he tees it up, or if he gets in contention at a major. When he coughed up the Masters, he was a young kid, and everyone was like, oh, he's going to move on, he's going to be there again. But you see these guys, when they get older, these kind of blunders cut deep. So how do you think it affects Rory at his age?
I think it affects him a lot. He's not getting any younger, and these chances are going to, start dwindling. His time is now. I really felt like yesterday was one of the most important rounds of his entire life. And, he played it 14 holes exactly the way he needed to. This one is really, really going to hurt. He needs to take some time off. I'm hearing he's now not going to play in Hartford this week, which is a signature event, and get away from the game for probably 2 or 3 weeks, and then go play the Scottish Open and the British. But I think this one is going to hurt a lot, and there are so many young guys that are coming up now, that it's not just a few players that he's going to have to start dealing with that are going to be, reminding us of Bryson DeChambeau. There's more and more all the time. Ludwig Aubert didn't play great yesterday, but he's going to be in that category pretty quick.
Well, and we haven't even mentioned Scottie Scheffler. I mean, that's another way of looking at it. If you're Rory, you didn't just choke it away to DeChambeau. Scheffler didn't have a week for the first time in like a year and a half, Rolf, where I don't know if that happens again anytime soon.
Yeah, Scheffler's out of gas. He needs a break. He looked so tired to me. He was kind of edgy. I didn't really get a chance to interact with him too much. He wasn't on our set at all on live from the U.S. Open on Golf Channel, but he just looks really, really tired and edgy to me. All these guys, I don't like this schedule where they're putting all these big events together now. The fact that they had Memorial, which is a really hard tournament, the week before the U.S. Open makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah, I hear you there. Mark Rolfing with us of NBC and the Golf Channel. Tiger Woods missed the cut, but he looked like he was legitimately rattled because he thought he was playing pretty well, and he liked his game, and he felt his body was in good shape. Just the course got to him. He also left and said, maybe it's my last one, maybe it's not. If you look into the future, Rolf, what do you see from Tiger Woods in the next 2 or 3 years?
I would not be surprised if that was his last round ever in a U.S. Open. Think about what's coming up in the U.S. Open Rota here. First off, next year, Oakmont, hardest golf course of all. A course that's going to play tougher. It won't played the same way that Pinehurst played, but Oakmont in '94 and a couple of years of U.S. Opens that I've seen here has been the toughest U.S. Open course I've ever seen. So I think Tiger sees the end. I think it's pretty soon. And, if you take a look at Tiger, his legacy on the golf course is written. He's never going to change that. He's not going to change it now. After he won that Masters a few years ago, that cemented his legacy on the course. But his legacy is not written off the golf course. And frankly, some of what has been written is not really very good. So I just really hope Tiger could step back and say, the second half of my life, I'm going to write a legacy off the golf course that is really going to be meaningful, just like my dad said I could do, more than any other person. And I really think he could do that. And I hope he focuses on that instead of, going out there and trying to beat Bryson DeChambeau, because he can't beat him.
Rolf, what do you think about the setup of that golf course? You detailed some of the courses coming up. I know in the past, analysts like Johnny Miller talked about a fader of the golf ball being a favorite at the U.S. Open because they keep it in play. They can land it soft on the greens. But it seems like more than half the field has no shot unless you launch it 6 miles up in the air. That seemed like only 3 or 4, maybe 5 guys could have won that golf tournament. Some of the other guys like JT and Spieth and those guys, they weren't playing well enough to even be in contention. But it just seems like the U.S. Open was fairways. Now it's just launch it in the air as far, and that's what's going to win.
That's the way the game has gone. I saw so many times this week where players had a decision, whether to lay up. And a lot of times when they were in that native area and they were going to pitch it back out to the fairway, I remember years and decades, of my career where you pitched it out to 115 yards, if that was your favorite number. Now you don't. You move it up as far as you can. If you can get it up to 60 yards, from the green, you just blast away. And if you think about it, the guy that kind of started that all in the U.S. Open was Bryson DeChambeau. That's the way he won the U.S. Open at Winged Foot. It was in the middle of COVID, so not as much attention was paid to it. But I don't like it. A power game has really changed people's perspective. And you look at these kids now and what they're trying to learn and do. It's all about speed. And to me, the skill in a lot of ways is going away from the game. I'd like to see some variety. I don't mind a week like this once a year or a couple times a year, but I really would like to see a situation where you could have a different kind of golf course where a player, like Jordan. I didn't feel like Jordan had a chance this week. I don't know why. I've just looked at him and I watched him play and I thought, you know what? He's going to shoot 6 or 8 over. That's just what he's going to shoot here.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. I think he was 8 over. Yeah, and that's it. I don't know. It's not going to change moving forward at Oakmont, like you mentioned, though, among some other spots. They got to get down to Kapalua, Rolf. That's where you get the creativity out, down at Kapalua.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I want us to get some creativity because now the U.S. Open champion is not going to be playing in the Century in January. I have a problem with that.
Yeah, so do I. Agree with you there. It's one of our favorite tourneys.
I would think a lot of golf fans do, too. I hope there is some really loud rumbling now about what are we going to do here because the fans are not going to stand to not have Bryson DeChambeau playing more than 4 times a year, in these big events.
Yep.
Yeah, but the counter to that, Rolf, is he made his own bet. Like, he knew that was the deal going in when he took the money. All of them did.
Understand, I hate LIV. I kind of hate everything about it. But having said that, I think we're in a situation now where this has to get figured out. Mm-hmm. And, the guys that reaped the biggest benefit and did the most damage, I think are going to have to pay the biggest price. People are going to forget that Bryson DeChambeau was suing these players and the PGA Tour not that long ago. So he should have to pay a big price. But you know what? They got so much money, as far as I'm concerned, they can afford it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Let's hope that that's the direction we're moving in here. It's been great catching up with you. We appreciate you doing this, and we'll do it again down the road. Thank you.
You got it, guys. Take care.
There's Mark Rolfing of NBC and the Golf Channel. Love having Rolf on. It just feels like January. You hear his voice, and Rolf's been a great commentator for a long time, man. He's awesome. But, yeah, listen, I think most people now, it's like, who cares one way or the other? Like, that's what you've noticed,
Yeah.
So anything that happens in the world, it's heated, it's emotional, people pick a side, you freak out, and then after a couple of years, you're like, what are we doing? Whatever, move on.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's generally the way it works, and that's kind of what's going on with Liv. Like, what do I care one way or the other? Who's playing where? Who's making what? I just want to see the best players play. In the biggest and best tournaments.
But for the longest time, guys, you're like, I'm not watching a live tournament.
Well, I'm not watching. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm going to watch a live event. What I'm saying is I want to see Bryson at the Memorial. I want to see Koepka play in Hawaii in January.
Dude, and trust me, I'm a golf junkie. I tried live. I can't watch it. It's ridiculous to watch. There's music and it looks stupid. It's just a bad watch, even for a golf nut.
Yep. It's exactly what it is. And here's another thing. Jon Rahm didn't even play at the U.S. Open. No one even talked about that guy.
No.
Like, not one comment. It's like, we missed Rahm, and he's at Live, and he took the money. And anyway. All right, Game 5 tonight. Jays Sox tonight as well down at the Dome. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Yusei Kikuchi on the mound for the Jays tonight. Jays coming off 2 straight wins against Cleveland. They took 2 or 3 out of the Guardians over the weekend after it was pretty ugly on Friday night. Varsho went deep yesterday. That was a bomb. And
is he their all-star? I'm seeing it's like vote
Gotta
for
be.
Varsho.
I would think it should be Barrios, like the way he started the year. But if you're talking about a fielder, it probably has to be Dalton Varsho. Like if you have to pick someone, none of them should be. None of them should be going there. It's definitely not Bichette. It's definitely not Springer. Vladdy's come on more recently, but it's not Vladdy. It's not going to be Davis Schneider. Schneider's been good. Danny Jansen, if he was healthy the whole time, maybe talk me into that. But, yeah, I guess Dalton Varsho, listen, he's played a lot better this year. Full credit to him.
But it's really kind of a sign of the times. Like in years past, it's like Bo Bichette. Everybody was there. Espinal was at the All-Star game.
Remember
that one?
Yeah, that's right. A couple of years ago, they were all going.
Kirk was there. Espinal was there. Bichette, Vladdy. Mm-hmm. It was a Jays fest.
Yeah, it was. And that will not be the case this year. I'm willing to put a lot of money on that.
Oh, no.
I'll bet you there'll be a lot of Yankees there. There'll be a lot of Baltimore Orioles there. That's for sure. And yeah, we'll see what comes of it. Yeah, I guess we're getting closer to the All-Star. We're less than a month away from that.
Did you see Ohtani's 2 jacks? Moonshots.
Yep. He's fit in pretty well in L.A. Right? He got rid of that dodgy little
the interpreter,
and now he's found his rhythm out there in L.A. with the Dodgers.
Guys, I got to show you one thing before we head out of here today. Joe from the Bridge put it up from my buddy Kevin from the North Bay Bulldogs.
Wow.
I'm on the team and played in that game. Normal guy, mechanic by trade that loves the game. Would love to tell you more about it. That's my guy in the right with the mustache, Kev.
I love it.
Way to go, buddy.
Shout out, man. Mustache. That looks like a mullet, number 4, and he's a beauty. All right.
Old school.
We're North Bay Bulldog fans.
Yeah,
we are. We want a hat. We want everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Do they sell that kind of stuff? I don't know.
There was a merch tent.
You're kidding me.
Tent.
Really?
Yes. And apparently, sometimes to start out, some of these guys got to pay to play. That's what I was told.
Ooh.
So it's like a fantasy camp kind of thing?
Dude, no, it's not. It's a professional league. They're semi-pro, Hayes.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, listen, these guys can play ball. Like they played high school ball.
Yeah.
Probably university, or they want to stay, in shape to play at university. That's possible, right?
Maybe if they got a Friday night game, we do the show right from the sidelines.
Okay, what do we have in the GTA? I'm not going to North Bay, with all due respect. I love the Bulldogs. They're my team.
Gritty cities in that mix.
Yeah, you got the Sioux and Sudbury and North Bay. There's probably just fights every game. It's great. But we'll see where they play in Toronto. Let's get no one from Toronto's reaching out, right? Do we have any Greater Toronto?
That's because we're Bulldogs for life.
That's true. That's true. They know. Don't come around here because we don't want to hear from you. We're North Bay Bulldogs.
That's right.
All right, there you go. Good stuff today. Well, we'll see if the Celtics close it tonight. We'll see what the Jays have in store. And tomorrow's a game day, Oilers-Panthers. So we'll be looking ahead to that. we're looking forward to it. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today, TV, radio, podcast, and web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
There's only one worse golf collapse. Coppenwood 18, Bryan Hayes. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.
It was awful.